Karen St. John.
Here.
Jackie Yenna.
Here.
Mary Morgan.
Here.
Scott Wright.
Here.
Alex Crowley.
Here.
Kate Rosenbarger.
It says she's here, but she's muted.
I'm here.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Hi,
There
Kate.
she is.
And then, do I also announce staff? I will. Jane Cooper Smith staff. Kevin Curran.
Yep.
I'm here. Yep.
And Larry Allen.
Good day to you all.
Hello. Marnina Patrick. I don't know if she has a mic, but she is here supporting us. And I think that's everybody.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you. Welcome, everyone. Glad you all are here and able to attend. The first item is the approval of minutes. Did everyone, I was not at the last meeting. I apologize for that. I was not able to make it. Did you have a chance to read them? Does anyone have any comments? Do we have a motion for approval?
Move to approve.
Okay.
Second.
That was Jackie first motion, and second, I think was maybe, I didn't see who.
It was Mary.
It was Mary. Okay, thank you, Mary. So all those in favor of approval of the minutes, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Same sign no. Okay, so the minutes are approved. And we will move on to the director's report. I think that's what's next on, I printed out the old agenda. I don't know if that had changed.
No, it's the same.
Okay.
It's the same. And there isn't, oh, Brian's here now. There isn't too much to go over. I just wanted to say, we have this kind of project of looking at the zone map to see whether it can be adjusted. And our new SPIA fellow couldn't be here today, but her name is Brittany Scholl. She's really great, and she is tackling the research project. So I just wanted to kind of announce that that is underway. And then just website application update. That's really more of a business economic enhancement scholarship update. I sent a push out on Friday to zone businesses about our increased allocation for the economic enhancement scholarship, and have 13 applications this morning. So it's exciting. We're going to get to watch that money start to move out the door.
Great, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And please extend our welcome to Brittany.
Yes, I will. She'll be with us next meeting. And then Kevin, if we're moving to financial report, I'll enlist Kevin for his help. And yeah, is this a good, I think I can shrink this if this is too much. Kevin, are you here?
I am. Yeah.
Okay. Do you mind walking us through the balance sheet?
I do not mind, but I cannot read that on screen very well. I have a very small screen, so I'm going to have to flip to the PDF. But that shouldn't be a big issue. Bear with me for a sec. Okay. Let's see. So we'll start with the balance sheet. Cash accounts, I think the one thing that stands out with First Financial, you have a negative balance in checking. That's because it's basically First Financial treats checking and savings as a combined available balance. And then money market is down year over year because that's what we use to fund the loans, the rapid relief loans. The other bank accounts haven't changed much. The only real activity going through them is interest income. So you're not seeing a significant change there. So total checking is up 132,000 roughly year over year. Accounts receivable, as we discussed last meeting, I'm still working through that and have committed to have an answer to you guys by the end of, or by the October results meeting. So I'm continuing to work on that. Within the notes receivable, the big changes, I think we had discussed before, there were 2 loans that were funded out of BUEA that should have been out of the food and beverage fund. We had transferred the money back into BUEA, and that covered That's the Rub and Soapy Soaps notes receivable. So those are really the biggest changes there. As you can see, the non-RRF loans continue to be paid down. The one that has not is Topologous Investments, and I think, Jane, that's something you've got on your radar screen.
For better or worse. And just to be really clear, what Kevin's talking about, last meeting we were comparing this QuickBooks report with the spreadsheet posted on the city's business webpage, and noticed there was a discrepancy. So when we looked into that, we understood that Soapy Soap and That's the Rub were funded under BUEA when they should not have been. So we've made that correction, and yeah, just trying to be really clear about that.
Can I ask I have just 2 questions if I can. So when we talk about the topologous, where that's on your radar, like, can you share with us just a little?
Oh, yeah. So that project dates from 2011, and from what I can tell, that was when the Topologous building was being finished. This amount had been on the books, and I was curious, and actually Brian's here, he might have some luck weighing in on or might have some information to add, since I think he tried to pull this thread as well. So I reached out to Topologous and found out that they had people kind of applying for all grants and loans. I think that they believed they received, we granted them a $25,000 loan. We issued them a $25,000 loan and a $10,000 historic facade grant. They paid back the $10,000. I think that's what they believed that they owed. And so there was clearly a miscommunication. They say that they had a third party applying for these programs, and that they think that's why there was an issue. They do not believe that they're delinquent. They don't believe that they have made an error in what they've paid back. And so I'm now trying to locate the original documents, and I had been talking with Julie about this. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Just trying to sort it all out.
Yeah. And this money is not easy for the BUE to come by. So I would really like to be able to recoup it, or correct the books if they're right and it's a mistake, which isn't my opinion, but if they're correct and it's a mistake, we need to fix the books. If they're wrong and they owe us money, we need to get the money. So.
Right.
Jane, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, please.
I just want to clarify one aspect of the timeline to see if I understand it correctly and maybe help out.
Please.
So when did you get in touch with them, and when did they pay the remainder of the facade grant?
Well, they didn't pay they paid $10,000 back.
When did they pay the remainder of what they believed they owed?
So I talked to them in July. And over the life of our relationship with them, they have only paid $10,000 back. I believe they made their last payment in 2016. It might have been before you even started, Brian.
Yeah, I think it was. So if they haven't made a payment while you've been okay. So my belief then is that either they're mistaken or they're deliberately misrepresenting they owe, simply because I don't know who you've been talking to, but I think Topolgus is based on, there's a surgeon, James Topolgus, an older gentleman.
Mm-hmm.
He called our office a couple times when I was in your chair and left messages without a contact number of return saying, hey, this is James Topolgus. I think I owe some more money. Happy to settle that up. And I was never able to track him down because he never left any contact information. So if it's not him and it's someone else.
No, it's him.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So that's very bizarre then.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's an upstanding community member. So I don't think he would be really happy about owing us money. If I think he would probably like to clear it up, but as of now, there's a disagreement about what is owed to whom. So,
well, it sounds like your approach, and Brian, thanks for weighing in on that. As you said, that he's an upstanding member of the community. I'm sure there's a miscommunication. And Jane, it sounds like your approach to just get the original source documents, have a conversation with them, see where the misunderstanding is, and or the error on our part, as you said, we could have something wrong on the books and we'll get it straightened out. So I appreciate you looking into that. Okay. I had one more question. On the top, you mentioned, Kevin, something about the checking account. I know we talked about this before, but I just don't understand why the checking account is negative.
Right. So what we'll do is typically we will transfer funds from savings to checking when we know a check is going to be written. But from First Financial Bank's perspective, they view the balance as being, one total balance. So if we overdraw on checking, it just comes out. I mean, they clear it. They allow us to write checks up to the savings balance.
Okay.
Well, and it's not that we've overdrawn. It's just that it's a sweep account, correct, Kevin? So we have a debit and then the credit comes in, but because the balance sheet is a snapshot, this is just a picture before the credit has come in, right, Kevin?
Okay.
So
That's
I think
correct.
that FFB checking is always in some strange state of credits and debits coming and going.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Great. You can keep going, Kevin. I stopped you.
We were down here. Okay.
Yeah. So if getting into liabilities, again, accounts payable is the same situation as accounts receivable. I'm continuing to dig into that and have committed to have an answer to you guys by the end of October for the October results. And then if you look at total liabilities and equity, which is the offset of total assets, that has gone up 423,000 roughly year over year. So moving on to the income statement, the big dollars are in zone membership fees, which are down about $100,000 year over year, and that may well be a timing issue. I don't know, Jane, if you have any insight if there are, significant funding that is no longer available to us. But,
well, yeah, I mean, I think that's the whole reason we're doing our MAP study is that EZIDs continue to roll off, and because of our competition with the TIF district, we don't have as many coming on. So I think that income is genuinely down.
Okay. In the next line is dues and subscriptions, and Jane and Alex and I discussed this. This was an EZID refund that we received, and so in talking to Jeff Underwood, he suggested that would offset the EZID dues and subscriptions that we pay, but we need to determine. I think the question mark is this a balance that needs to then be paid back to the members, and if so, then we'll need to record that differently. It would be
It does not, Kevin. I just had confirmation from AIEZ this morning.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
we'll have to figure out how to reallocate that. But I think for now, that goes into our
Yeah,
operating budget, which is good.
Right, and it's basically a refund of, a portion of the 16,152 that was paid in 2019 is the way. So
Okay.
it doesn't. We'll figure out if there's a better way to record that. That's essentially what that is. The next big number is Zone Arts grants, which makes up total grants basically. Insurance expense, roughly the same. Business scholarships running a little bit ahead. Resident scholarships running ahead as well. And then Lemonade Day, I need to look at that. Because I know we had discussed this before. It is a special project, but I believe it was the information I had from the bank account was Flow Motion events. So I think that probably should be reclassified to special projects which, and Jane, correct me if I'm wrong, but assuming that's the case, I can make that change very quickly. It won't take any effort. I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's Lemonade Day. I mean, we can talk offline.
I think maybe you clarified that. I was trying to go back through my emails right before this call, so I can see what's in the bank account, but it's not always clearly depicted. So I know you and I had discussed, had gone back and forth and clarified a few items. So that is where that information came from, I'm sure. Interest income, 4880 to give us a total net income of 542,808 compared to a negative 358,213. And again, that negative number included the $1 million special projects to CDFI friendly Bloomington.
Thanks.
Okay.
Are there any questions from board members about the financials that you want to ask either Kevin or Jane?
I guess I have a really quick question. I mean, and it was actually just came to me recently because I thought about the ownership salary. I'm just a quick question: is that going to have any impact in terms of that ownership change, and maybe to make sure of
That's a good question, Scott. I can follow up with Ryan and Toby to make sure that we are paid back in the course of that sale, which I don't think they've closed on yet. So I can report back on that next time.
I guess then the other thing was if Topaugus, if that was a grant which wasn't sort of necessarily needed to be paid back, so essentially the difference is about $5,900, the difference that they should owe.
I'm having a really hard time hearing you, Scott. I'm sorry.
Okay, what I was saying is that, so since there was a grant for the historic facade for the Topaugus building, right?
Mm-hmm.
That grant, if that wasn't needed to be paid back, I mean, it's kind of weird that they paid it back if it was a grant. But then the other part, the loan being, so the difference is I'm just trying to get my head wrapped around what
So I think I have explained it in a confusing way. There were two separate pots. They received the $10,000 grant. They received the $25,000 loan. I think that they thought the grant was 25 and the loan was 10. So they paid back 10 and are saying that they believe they have completed their repayment. So I don't know if that helps.
That helps.
Yeah. So it's a net loss of, or it's not a loss yet, but it's an owed amount of 15.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And until we, to Jane's point, I think until we have the original documents, it's kind of hard to know what happened there. So we'll just look for that from you. And really appreciate your question, Scott, because it is, I too find myself trying to understand that. So thank you. Any other questions for Jane or Kevin on the financials?
Just this comment. If this is the Dr. Topolgis that I'm thinking of, I'm surprised he's still alive. The man must be very old, and it could just be a product of that. I think it was his family that was doing the project, and maybe, you know, he was the grand old man to, you know, that everybody knew.
He seems like he's in pretty great shape. He's still practicing, and I met with him and his one of his daughters who does his books for him. So
Okay,
Yeah.
this must be a son. All right, my mistake.
That's okay. And it's a good comment, you know, it's fine to have these conversations. Just as a reminder, these are public meetings, so they are recorded and live on Facebook. So we do want to be aware of that. And given the fact that we really don't know about the situation, I think we're all being very careful, including you, Paul, about, and Jane being open, that who knows what's going on here, and not to lay responsibility with anyone quite yet until we get more information relative to the source documents. So
correct.
so we look forward to that, Jane, once you're prepared to let us know what you found.
Will do.
Anything else? Any other comments or questions about financials? Jane, do we do, other boards I'm on, we do like a motion to accept the financials? I don't think we do that here, do we?
We haven't, but Larry, is that something we should consider?
I mean, you can consider it certainly if you like. I don't know what would be the impact of a failed motion to accept the financials. I don't know that would matter one way or another, but you're welcome to take a motion. Just for future reference, whenever you do vote on motions, please do the vote by roll call as opposed to just voice vote. Thanks.
Yeah, we don't need to do it. I was just, couldn't remember if we did those here or not. As I mentioned, other boards I've been on, they do accept the financials as a motion, but we don't need to do that here unless people want to do that. Okay.
You can certainly do it as a way of recording them with the minutes to make sure that they're accurate. So as long as they're accurate, it'd be the same as the minutes. So just to have it recorded along with those, that might be a good idea.
I think that's why other boards I've been on, it's sort of like the board accepts the financial statements as presented to the board, as opposed to your point, like rejecting them. Like, no, the board doesn't believe these are accurate and we are discounting them and rejecting them. So I think you're right. Maybe accepting them as record, that might be a good thing to do. So if someone wants to entertain a motion to accept the financials as presented, please do.
Alex Crowley, so moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of accepting the financials? Oh, nope, we got to do it. Sorry. Thank you. Jane, do you want to do a roll?
Yeah, I'll call.
Okay.
Karen,
Yes.
Jackie,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Tracy.
Yes.
Thanks.
And thank you, Jane, for mentioning Tracy. I wanted to welcome her. I don't think we had you at the original roll call, so also to enter Tracy as attending the meeting. Thank you. Good. Glad you're with us, Tracy.
I was dealing with some plumbing issues.
Oh, that sounds really not fun.
No.
So next we have is it the committed funds to date?
Yeah. This we looked over. I guess this is the spreadsheet that I had added, which is the funded loans document. So we have our BUEA column, and then this is now set and correct. So, but we talked about that already.
Okay.
And then these are the zone arts grants that have gone out. total outstanding of the loans. That's because we've had the $50,000 repayment. A few zone resident scholarships, new ones have come in. A few business scholarships have come in. And as I said, we have 13 new ones. So yeah, that's just it for current programming. And then we'll have some additional programming. The MCCSC sponsorship, Cirilla Helms will join us in October to talk about that support. So not much action this month, but I think September will be, or in August, but I think September will be busy. So we'll see a lot more activity there. And then, yeah, I mean, I think that's all that I have.
Okay. Any questions for Jane about the committed funds to date and the schedules she's pulled up? Okay, well, hearing none, thank you, Jane, for that.
I have one question.
Oh, yeah.
Mary.
Yeah, Jane, I just wanted to make sure that what you're showing us, the updated version, is also the one that's posted on our website?
Of the RRF, it is.
Okay.
Yeah. So we closed that loop.
So if you went to the BUEA website, you could see this information, so the public can go to that and see it, is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's correct.
And is that also the, there's on the business, the bloomington.in.gov/business page has a link to this as well. Has that been updated as well? Do you know?
Learn something new every day.
Okay. I'll take care of that.
No, I can do it. I just didn't know that it was also reflected there.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Jane, thanks for keeping this up to date and linking everything to the website. And
yeah, so if I can get us back up to our agenda, I guess.
I think we have the CDFI friendly Bloomington update with Brian, although I don't see that on that agenda, but
we added it after we circulated the agenda. So
okay.
I would file that under other or new business. But since we're just after the anniversary of the contribution that the BUEA made to CDFI friendly Bloomington, we thought it would be nice to invite Brian to give us an update.
Great. Thank you, Brian. We're glad you're here.
Yeah, glad to be here. Jane, is it okay if I share my screen?
Can you do it?
Host disabled participant screen sharing.
This might be beyond
there you
my,
go.
You got it?
Yeah, that worked.
Marnina took care of you.
Nice.
Thank you, Marnina.
Thank you, Marnina.
Okay, so, first of all, it's great to be back. I'm really enthused to see not only the financials looking in better shape than they were when I was there, but the membership is lively and rejuvenated with new blood. So BUEA is in very good hands, and it's really great to see some of the new folks. So in light of that, I will try to give a little bit of historical context. I know Jane has been keeping you all updated. So as Jane mentioned, about a year ago and far longer than a year ago, BUEA committed to contribute $1 million to capitalize CDFI friendly Bloomington's capital enhancement pool, which is basically a pot of money we use to lend to local borrowers for community development projects. And we do that alongside CDFIs. And I'll talk a little bit more about how we do that for some of the new folks, but we're very appreciative of that capital, and it has hopefully not only about to be deployed to great success, but it's already been really useful in demonstrating the commitment of the community and the region to this project, and as commitment that can be leveraged to gain more capital from banks. So it's already been useful, even though we haven't spent it specifically for the purpose that it was designed. So I'm happy to answer any other questions about that, but let me quick go through this, especially for some of the new members. So CDFIs are community development financial institutions. They are outside the traditional finance market, and they can look like a lot of different things: loan funds, venture funds, banks, credit unions. You know, the aphorism, if you've seen one CDFI, you've seen one CDFI. But basically what they do is fund community development projects. So projects that are good for the community, that benefit low income, low wealth, other disadvantaged communities, or affordable housing or nonprofits, other community development mission goals. And they do it typically in areas where the banks are not interested, right? So they lend either to borrowers that cannot get funding from banks, to projects that are not interesting to banks typically, and they sort of live outside the four corners of the traditional finance market. And so they fund really good things, and we want to incentivize their participation in our community. And so that's why we're called CDFI Friendly Bloomington, and that's why we have sort of a focus. Our end goal is to fund these development projects and get these good projects money, but that's why our mechanism is to be proactive and engage with the CDFI industry. Happy to answer any questions about that at the end. We talked about what CDFIs fund. The typical three legs of the CDFI stool are nonprofit lending, affordable housing, and small business. So here, affordable housing, nonprofit, and small business, all relatively extensive with BUEA's mission, but especially small business and entrepreneurship fits right within the BUEA's mission as well. And so this is sort of the baseline I like to compare our activity to. Opportunity Finance Network is the CDFI trade association. So this is not perfect data, but it's the best available data on CDFI lending in the Bloomington MSA prior to our existence. So most of the last 2 decades. And you'll see there's a few projects. The total investment is just under $5.5 million over the better part of 2 decades. So, we've talked a little bit with this group about why we're choosing to do this instead of start a new CDFI or invest in a satellite office for an existing CDFI. And really the reason is that Bloomington is not a huge market, which is why we don't already have a CDFI, but we have the diversity of capital needs that reflects a bigger market. So we have broad but shallow portfolio needs. And so entity like CDFI Friendly that can be a liaison and a connection to a $186 billion market and work with the CDFIs that are experts in each area rather than starting one small group that's going to try to actually be the lender on projects that we've never done before and lend to everything that would constitute a community development capital need. So that's why we've chosen to structure our organization as we have. This is just a graphic that shows how CDFI Friendly Bloomington exists differently than CDFIs. We're really just adding a layer between investors and users, and we're a facilitator that stands in because CDFIs aren't present in our community. So we can help provide technical assistance, help promote borrower opportunities in the area, link deal opportunities to CDFIs that don't have a presence here. And so we really fulfill that role that's lacking from an on-the-ground presence. And I'm happy to send this along to Jane and to any members who are interested. So our structure is pretty simple. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. We now have a board of 7 members. Scott, I'm so sorry that the number is not reflected in the presentation. But Scott Wright's joined our board, which makes us seven strong. We serve 13 counties around Monroe. Almost, 80% of our deal opportunities have been in the city. And as you all are aware, some of our equity capital is restricted to being used within the city of Bloomington. But we do serve the 12 counties surrounding Bloomington, all the way from Du Bois up to Martin and over to Lawrence and Jackson. There's 3 permanent seats on the board. You have 1. It's currently being held by Scott Wright, although Jane is also on the board, but in her capacity as a small business owner. I'm the only full-time staffer. Most of our funding comes from nonprofits and local banks that are looking to help, effectuate CRA lending and community development lending in the region. CFB Capital is the enhancement fund. That is the destination of the BUEA contribution. We had $2 million in equity in that fund, and we are currently closing deals for hopefully more than $2 million in additional debt capital from local banks. I had a meeting with the local bank this morning to get some paperwork done.
Hey, Brian, may I
yes.
ask a question?
You always may.
Enhancement fund sounds really slick. Can you talk about what that is and does?
Yeah, that's a good positive softball question. And I appreciate you guiding me towards the level of granularity and summary information needed. So what are we talking about? As I mentioned, the CDFI friendly model is not to be the sole lender on any project. Not only do we not have the underwriting experience, but we don't have the needs in our community, and we don't have the portfolio to be able to service all of those needs as a sole lender. So our model is to use the enhancement fund to facilitate investment by CDFIs. So we lend alongside a CDFI. If a CDFI underwrites a deal, thinks it's a good use of capital, and is willing to do the deal, but needs somebody to mitigate some risk, needs somebody to increase their lending cap. Some small CDFIs have lending caps that prevent them from investing more than a certain amount. If their rate is a little bit outside of the range of a borrower's affordability, CDFI friendly can lend at a lower rate alongside them to bring the blended rate down. There's a lot of different ways we can use the money, but the bottom line is that the money is used as an incentive to get CDFIs to invest a lot more money. So very good question, Jane, thank you. So that's owned and operated by CDFI Friendly Bloomington, and an investment committee governs the expenditures of that funds. Julie Donham, who I believe is still on BUEA, is just not present today, is that right? Okay, is the BUEA representative on the investment committee. And then the other members are a rotating seat for our local banking board members and our treasurer, Warren Cutchall. So, and every investment by CFB Capital has to be approved by the board as well. So both Jane and Scott will ultimately get a vote on how that capital is expended. So that's basically the structure. And Jane, please let me, am I going way over time? How much time do you want me to give you?
I mean, we're at 12:42. We have an hour. Okay. So I think, yeah.
But you have other stuff on the agenda, right?
No, you're it, I think.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So in terms of key functions, I like to organize, our services and why we exist into 4 main roles for both CDFIs and for local borrowers. So 2 of them are non-pecuniary. It's basically me working to identify and develop potential CDFI investment opportunities. And that relies on networks like the BUEA, networks like the City of Bloomington, the Small Business Development Center. I am really interested in hearing about potential projects that are good for the community and need money that they're having trouble getting, right? I want to take any meeting and any call from somebody matching that description. And so part of the service our organization does to the community is to provide an outlet for folks that have that need and don't know where to go. And to the CDFI community, we provide value by organizing and aggregating a pipeline of potential deals in a market that they don't have a physical presence in, which is hugely valuable to them. So we're a finance liaison. We're a connector and an organization that is promoting borrower opportunities and deals in the region out to CDFIs and then and to CDFIs back to the borrowers. Second, we can market and provide technical assistance of those opportunities. So CDFIs, one of the things that distinguishes a CDFI from a bank is that a CDFI has to provide technical assistance. They have to help the borrower beyond just giving them capital. And so for CDFIs that don't know the borrowers here, don't know the city government environment, the market here, I can step in and provide some of that insight and knowledge and some of that help that they would be able to provide if they had a physical presence, but don't. And then financially, we can provide the enhancement funding from the CFB capital account we talked about in a lot of different ways. And then it's not listed on this slide, but we also have a deal with Bank of America, and we're going to get the first deployment of that capital very, very soon, where any CDFI that invests in the CDFI friendly Bloomington region can access really cheap money from Bank of America. It used to be 0%, now it's closer to 1% because the market is worse. But that's a really great thing for their balance sheet. And the goal is for them to use that as an incentive to look at our market, spend money in our market, and then take the money that they get from Bank of America and either make the terms better for our borrowers or redeploy it somewhere else in the region. That's a benefit. So those are some of the key functions that we play as an organization. And then if you hearken back to the chart I shared from OFN that lists sort of the Cdfi investment from the previous 2 decades, in our year of being a staffed entity, we've had pretty significant impacts in terms of encouraging Cdfis to invest here. So we've more than tripled the Cdfi capital investment in the Bloomington MSA in this year as compared to the last 2 decades. We have 6 Cdfis currently looking at funding. You know, I talked to more than 6 Cdfis, but at least 6 Cdfis are looking at funding deals in Bloomington or funding projects in Bloomington in some fashion. We've funded in some way or another contributed to more than 166 affordable housing units, some new, some renovated through a RAD conversion. And then we've supported the creation and retention of 10 jobs. So we're looking to make more of an impact in the business sector. We've leveraged a lot of incentives from other government bodies, and overall these projects have cost more than $28.5 million. So we're bringing money into the community, into projects that are going to have value for the most disadvantaged sectors and people of the community. And so we're hoping to add to that very soon. We have a couple of projects coming down the pipeline. I think y'all are pretty familiar with the Rapid Response Fund, and these are just a couple of slides talking about Cdfi Friendly Bloomington's role in helping to administer, helping to create the loan product, and promote the information about the opportunity to sources, right? So I think you're pretty familiar with that. The last one I'll mention, you know, we are trying to be sort of an end outlet for either individuals that didn't get enough money or were not able to obtain funding from the Rapid Response Fund, to put them right into our pipeline and say, look, we're going to look for money for you from the Cdfi industry, right? So there's a really good program that's available right now through a Cdfi called Bankable, for example, that's microloans to small businesses, and the SBA will make your first 6 principal and interest payments if we can get that done in the next month. So anybody, if you're aware of anybody who might be interested in that, we're happy to connect you with Bankable. You're pretty familiar with this process. I can skip that. Upcoming projects that I hope to be able to announce really, really soon. One is, I think probably the 3rd deal we're going to close is Richland Senior Housing, which will be our first deal outside the city of Bloomington. This is another project where we were a facilitator. We didn't invest any money, but a Cdfi named Sinair from Michigan, which has funded our other 2 projects, is in negotiations with the developer of a senior housing project that is a combination of renovating and rehabilitating existing smaller properties, creating 50 new units, which will total, I gotta move my little window here, over 161 new senior housing units, combining new and renovated units for seniors 62 and over in Ellettsville. And they always reserve a few for individuals with developmental disabilities. And they have on-site support staff, and they have a shuttle to get you in and about town. And it's a really great project. It's a $20 million project, and we're hoping the Cdfi will provide at least 11 million of those dollars. And depending on how negotiations go, it could even be more. So that would be great. The second project I'm probably more excited about because it would represent the first deployment of CFB capital dollars. So 921 West 9th Street is a I should be more careful since we're on Facebook Live, a deteriorating single family home near Reverend Butler Park. It was previously used as private student housing. It's technically classified as a 9-bedroom, but it hasn't been used for several years. And Bloomington Cooperative Living, which owns the yellow house on Kirkwood near Rogers, that you may know as Middle Earth, is hoping to do their first development of an owner-occupied home where they convert it into co-op housing. So currently nobody's living in it, and it doesn't look great, but it's right next to Reverend Butler Park. It's in a great location across from the community orchard. And they're going to turn it into 18 affordable units to individuals making less than 80% of area median income, some mostly studios, but some are even suites for families. And that rent includes utilities and 15% of the tenant's meals. So every night BCL offers a community meal for folks that are interested. So it's really, really good housing, and it's a great way to get involved with the community. Everyone's got a private room and a private bathroom in this project, but of course it's community style living. So that would be about almost $1 million project. Cdfi Friendly Bloomington is looking at lending between $300,000 and $450,000 or so. Sinair is involved in that one. And then Leaf, which is a Cdfi in Massachusetts that focuses on co-op deals and is really the expert in this deal, would be involved too. So it's a really great example of our organization's ability to not only reach out to groups we would never otherwise work with, like this co-op specific Cdfi in Brookline, Massachusetts, but also to participate and get deals done that otherwise would have no prayer of being done, right? So this is not a profitable venture. You know, the renovations are going to well exceed the value of the market value of the house, but it's a great community need, a good community organization, and they wouldn't be able to do this project without some affordable, flexible capital that cares about the mission rather than the ROI. So hopeful to have announcements on those two fronts pretty soon.
And did you mention, I think this group is probably aware, but that's a zone address.
I didn't, and I should have. Not only is it in the zone, but it's in a TIF, right? So that's eligible for either our Redevelopment Commission equity or the BUA equity. And that's right smack dab in the middle of the enterprise zone. I should have mentioned that. So that's my contact information. I'm thrilled to meet with any and all of you to talk about projects or more about the organization. Like I said, it's really important for me to get referrals from anywhere and everywhere for folks who have small business capital needs, nonprofit needs, or any other sort of community development need. And I'm happy to send you this presentation, but I would love to just hear some feedback and answer any questions that the group has.
Brian, that was a great presentation. It looks like Paul has a question.
Me too.
Just a comment again, that 9th Street property, I've seen it. Other organizations had looked at it, and it was just more than they could handle. So congratulations.
I have a couple of questions too.
Go ahead, Mary.
Okay. I'm just going to ask them all, and hopefully you can field them however you want. In your slide showing the number of housing units, affordable housing units created, could you talk a little bit more about what those projects were?
Yes. What are we talking about? What's going on?
And also how you calculate the number of jobs retained and created. And then third question is, did the recent changes to the city's UDO affect interest one way or another in projects from your perspective?
Yeah, it's a great question. So first of all, let me ask the room, can you see your own faces in front of the PowerPoint right now, or can you see the whole PowerPoint screen? I've never known this about Zoom.
I can see the whole PowerPoint.
Great. All right. So I'm not going to fiddle with my Zoom. Thank you. All right. So very good question. The first question is, how do we generate those affordable housing numbers? And the answer is, we are counting affordable units that are created or renovated by projects that Cdfi Friendly has contributed to. So it's not a fraction of what the project would be that is proportionate to our investment share, which is the first thing to know. So that's the total impact of the entire project. And then what are the projects that contributed to those numbers? So it's two projects. The first one is Kinser Flats, which is over by the Holiday Inn and the BEDC over on Kinser Pike, which you may have seen going up. That is owned and occupied by Centerstone, the behavioral health nonprofit in town. And that's 50 affordable housing units for individuals and families touched by substance use disorder. So that will have supportive services on site. They're all affordable units. And that's a really great project that had, Old National Bank lent to that. Sinair syndicated the tax credits and gave the pre-development loan. The Bloomington Housing Authority partnered to provide some vouchers and make sure that they could fill it with folks that need housing. The city was definitely very helpful. I think there might be home dollars spent on that. I can't remember, but that's a great example of a multi-layered capital stack and a partnership. So that is the 50 new units are from Kinser Flats. And then the 116 affordable housing units that have been renovated and rehabilitated, those are all the units from the Reverend Butler and Walnut Woods Bloomington Housing Authority properties. So all their properties in the Reverend Butler and Walnut Woods areas went through a RAD conversion deal where they can get low-income housing tax credits to update those and keep them viable and better for the tenants for the next 30 to 35 years. So those will all be redone, new Energy Star appliances, new kitchen, new living room, new security system around there, new lighting, all that sort of stuff funded by low-income housing tax credits and these lenders. And the tenants in those places will be given housing at no charge to them while the repairs go on. And so that's a really great project that keeps some of our affordable housing stock not only better serving the tenants, but useful for farther down the road. So that's where the affordable housing units renovated number comes from. I think the second part of your question was, where do we get the jobs created retained number? So those are from a couple of places. One of them is me. I'll be straightforward with that. I wouldn't have a job without CDFI friendly Bloomington, so I'm counting myself. The other 9 are from the Reverend Butler and Walnut Woods RAD conversion project, and Kinser Flats will each have some support staff that will be permanent staff to help serve those facilities. BHA has a formula where they say this is how many of our staff serve each facility, right? So the continued existence of Reverend Butler and Walnut Woods and the new existence of Kinser Flats will require support staff. And so that makes up the remainder of the 9 employees. So we're hoping that number goes up when we start deploying some of this capital to support small businesses and entrepreneurs. It's a good question. I think your third question was, I lost it. I'm so sorry. What was the third question?
It was whether the recent changes to the UDO, the city's UDO, Unified Development Ordinance, affected interest in projects one way or another, or if there was no impact.
I would say that in terms of interest level, I haven't seen a measurable impact, and it's also hard to distinguish it from the other major issues going on right now, right? Where COVID has had a giant impact on interest in the types of deals we're seeing. I don't think the UDOs had a more than negligible impact on interest in CDFI friendly. What it has done is caused a couple of wrinkles for projects in development, right? So projects that are sort of straddling the old UDO and the onset of the new UDO and trying to make sure that they're, something they planned beforehand is still an acceptable use, right? But I don't think it's affected interest. Good question.
Great. Thanks, Mary. Anyone else have questions for Brian?
I can maybe help on the UDO side too. I've been having discussions with developers, particularly from out of town. Actually one of the things that I've heard in a couple of different cases is historically Bloomington's been pretty hard to figure out when it comes to how to do development. It's been frustrating, particularly outside developers who don't know the ins and outs. What I'm hearing is that the clarity that has come from the UDO creates predictability, and the predictability makes it easier to approach Bloomington with development relative to what existed before. One person told me it was just easier to go to a different market. If you were agnostic where you were going to make your money, it was just easier to go to a market that had greater clarity than Bloomington did. So I think we'll probably end up seeing that shift happening progressively as the UDO process completes, which will include the mapping shortly. So if anything, I kind of feel like the UDO will have a positive effect on development interest in town.
Thanks, Alex, for those comments. I sit on the Plan Commission and sat through those hearings for the UDO, so I appreciate you reflecting on it in a positive way. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Brian, so would you say overall that most of the projects are related to affordable housing so far?
That's a good question, and one that we get from investors and potential borrowers and sort of key stakeholder entities in the financial industry is what sort of deals is this entity drumming up? So I would say the majority of the deals are nonprofit or small business requests. Now that's the majority in terms of the actual number of deals, the number of potential borrowers, but not in terms of the amount of total investment. So what I think you're seeing in our impact so far is that the deals that bring a lot of capital and interest CDFIs most, in an area where they're really comfortable lending, and they've been doing it for decades, is affordable housing. And it may be the most salient need among the three in Bloomington. Mm-hmm. So you see, those cause a really big effect on the impact metrics, and it brings a lot of money and leverages a lot of state and federal incentives. But I think the number of folks that we talk to, I've probably talked to 25 or 30 or more potential small business borrowers. It's just the success rate and the rate in which they need and are interested in pursuing a loan is much smaller than an affordable housing developer or a nonprofit developer. So I would say that in terms of if I were to guess at a pie chart, the number of small business loans and nonprofit, capacity building loans far exceeds the number of affordable housing opportunities. But the affordable housing opportunities are the larger dollar ones. Clearly, we're getting a lot of micro loan requests from small businesses and nonprofits. Yeah, that's a really good question.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's very interesting. Anything else for Brian? Okay, well, thank you so much, Brian. We really appreciate this update, and congratulations on all the good work that you and the board of Cdfi Friendly Bloomington are accomplishing. It's really impressive.
Yeah, thank you very much. And obviously we couldn't do it without the BUEA, and I'm really impressed to see how the BUEA has grown since I stopped following it up. So it's really good to check in with you all.
Great, thank you. Yep, Jane's doing a really good job. So I think, Jane, it looks like to me that there isn't anything else on the agenda. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and it is 1:02. So we'll tell Julie that I only ran 2 minutes over because she's pretty good about the 1 hour when she can. So do we have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Okay. We have a second?
Second.
Cool. And Larry, we're not going to take a roll call on adjourning. We're just going to adjourn. Everyone in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Okay. Well, thank you to all of you for your time today, donated to the BUEA board. Really appreciate it. I think we're all doing some really good work under Jane's leadership with the assistance of Marnina, Kevin, and Larry. And so thanks to all of you, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.